Hare Krishna. Dear devotees, my humble obeisances to you all. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you all for joining His Holiness Candramauli Swami Maharaj's daily class. Today, I hope you are all having a blissful Sri Ram Navami. All glories to Sri Ramachandra. So, Maharaj, Hare Krishna Maharaj, my humble obeisances to you. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. So, are we continuing Srimad Bhagavatam today or any special topic we are talking?
Tomorrow is Sri Ram Navami in Europe and in India, so I'll do it tomorrow.
Okay, Maharaj.
Today we'll stick with the verses, so devotees can pick it up tomorrow.
Yes, Maharaj.
Since most of the people are online or from either the UK or India.
Yes, Maharaj. Yeah. Okay, so today we are continuing with our Srimad Bhagavatam study, first canto, 18th chapter, verse number 7. Hare Krishna Maharaj, you can take over. Thank
you. Anasuya wasn't able to make it today?
Yes, Maharaj. Yeah, sorry, I forgot to mention that. Yeah, Mataji is a little busy. Today is Sri Ram Navami here in US. She has some morning service. That's why. Okay. Hopefully she may join tomorrow, but she's not sure about that.
Okay. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Srimad Bhagavatam 1:18-7. Nanudvaishta kalam samrat saraga eva sarabuk kusalam asusidyanti netarani kritani yat. Translation. Maharaj Parikshit was a realist, like the bees who only accept the essence of a flower. He knew perfectly well that in this age of Kali, auspicious things produce good effects immediately, whereas inauspicious acts must be actually performed to have effect. So he was never envious of the personality of Kali. The age of Kali is called the fallen age. In this age, because the living beings are in an awkward position, the Supreme Lord has given some special facilities to them. So by the will of the Lord, a living being does not become a victim of a sinful act until the act is actually performed. In other ages, simply by thinking of performing a sinful act, one used to become a victim of the act. On the contrary, a living being in this age is awarded with the results of pious acts simply by thinking of them. Maharaj Parikshit, being the most learned and experienced king by the grace of the Lord, was not unnecessarily envious of the personality of Godhead, because he did not intend to give him any chance to perform any sinful act. He protected his subject from falling prey to the sinful acts of the age of Kali. At the same time, he gave full facility to the age of Kali by allowing him some particular places. At the end of the Srimad Bhagavatam, it is said that even though all nefarious activities of the personality of Kali are present, there's a great advantage in the age of Kali. One can attain salvation simply by chanting the holy name of the Lord. Thus, Maharaj Parikshit made an organized effort to propagate the chanting of the Lord's holy name, and thus he saved the citizens from the clutches of Kali. It is for this advantage only that the great sages sometimes wish all good for the age of Kali. In the Vedas also, it is said that by discourse on the Lord's activities, one can get rid of all of the disadvantages of the age of Kali. In the beginning of the Srimad Bhagavatam, it is also said by the recitation of Srimad Bhagavatam, the Supreme Lord becomes at once arrested within one's heart. These are some of the great advantages of the age of Kali. And Maharaj Parikshit took all the advantages and did not think any ill of Kali, true to his Vaishnavite cult. Chaksun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Sri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadam Mayam Dadati Swam Padati Kam. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasnaya Bhutale. Shrimakti Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namne Namaste Saraswati Deve. Gauravani Pacharine Nivasesa Sunyavadi Pasyatya Devasantarine. Vanchakalpa Darubis Chakri Basindube Vachapatitanam Pavane Bhyo Vaishnave Bhyo Namaho Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Sivasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So there is a ordinary statement that says, wherever there is a great need, there is the greatest mercy. Wherever there is the greatest need, there is the greatest mercy. So in Kali Yuga, people are so deficient and so prone to sinful activities and irreligious and religious misunderstandings that it's a very difficult age to function even materially normal, what to speak of practicing spirituality. This age is what we say fraught with so many bad qualities. Even if you are a good person and you're not trying to commit anything wrong, still you become affected by what's going on around, either directly or indirectly. It's just the way this age is. So some concessions by the Lord due to the, what we say, the low quality of consciousness in this age of Kali. And therefore here it says, in previous ages, if someone just thought of a sinful act, they would be implicated in the reactions. In this age, there is a concession by the Lord that unless the act is actually performed, there is no reaction. But still, one should be very wary to not allow thoughts, negative thoughts, to enter into the mind, whether sinful or just what we say negative, because the mind has a tendency to dwell on these things and then they grow. As you think about them, they become stronger. And if they become too strong, then one will find themselves implicated in a wrong activity. So one should take the mercy of the Lord in this age and not allow for wrong thoughts or sinful thoughts to enter into the mind. Although we see, just because the atmosphere is so polluted, that good people are subjected to the influence of this energy that is everywhere in this age. The statistics for the horrors of this age is not even broadcast around. Without going into anything specific, I just came across some really horrendous, horrible activities that are going on in this world by people who are, you might say, demoniac in nature. The killing of children is such a high thing that's going on in this world that, about every year, almost 1 million children are kidnapped from different countries around the world and shipped into different places, tortured, killed, their organs being taken, sold. It's a big business on the underground. This age is so horrible. if you actually knew, you shouldn't know what's going on because it's so bad. I mean, it's just horrible because all of this is hidden by the media, what's actually going on. And things look much better than they actually are, but they're not. And this will all come out in due course of time as things continue to spiral downward. But anyway, without going into that particular subject, is that devotees are victimized by the atmosphere of negativity and sinful life, and they find themselves either having bad dreams, or all of a sudden certain negative thoughts will appear within the mind for no apparent reason, and there's no connection with anything, they just appear. And that's due to the age. That's pretty much due to the age. Therefore, here it says that one should take full facility of the mercy of the Lord, which is very strong in this age, and that is the chanting of the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, which can push back any and all of the effects of the age of Kali. The holy name itself is so powerful because it's Krishna himself in transcendental sound, that one who stays contact with the holy name, even if they're in the most dangerous and degraded situation finding themselves in, they can be freed from all effects of that situation because the power of the holy name is complete. One who seriously and regularly takes shelter of the holy name. That is the benefit of this age. Therefore, it says that the sages came together one time to discuss which of the 4 ages is the best age for practicing spiritual life. Obviously, we understand that the age of Satya Yuga, where people were pious, religious, and God conscious, was very much the ideal time in the history of mankind. But the sages were concluded that because the mercy in this age is so great, that this is the best of all ages, because simply by chanting the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, one can overshadow all effects of the age of Kali, and of course bring one's consciousness to the platforms of transcendence or in contact with Krishna directly. Well, that's a special mercy. And the other special mercy as mentioned here, no one is awarded sinful reactions for bad thoughts. So that's the mercy of the Lord in this age, and it's very strong. Some people think that God doesn't really do much to help people in this age, but he does a lot. We just have to take advantage of what he gives. Just like if someone gives you a gift and it's nicely wrapped and it's a big, and it looks so attractive, but if you just take the gift and you put it in your drawer in your bedroom and you don't open it, it's in one sense you don't even have it. The benefit is in the use, and is an appreciation of the mercy given by such mercy. That's why Srila Prabhupada, he traveled throughout the world, and he sacrificed his health, very much so, especially at an old age in the 70s, traveling all around, meeting important people, preaching Krishna consciousness without any compromise, even though many people didn't want to hear the absolute truth. He never patronized or compromised in any way. And then, of course, he opened temples, wrote books, and had the devotees distribute his books everywhere. Spoke on very powerful subjects that were intrinsic to the soul's relationship with the Supreme Lord, and also about the nature of the Supreme Lord and how the Lord interacts with his devotees, both in the spiritual world and in the material realm also. So Prabhupada appeared in Kali Yuga at the time when people were most needed this message of, what we say, of God consciousness. And he was tireless, and the devotees that would associate with Prabhupada could not even keep up with the schedule that Prabhupada took care of himself too. He did what he could to maintain his health, because he had failing health throughout the time he was here, and sometimes it was very bad. And twice he almost left the body, but still it didn't deter him to his preaching. He was determined to do whatever he could to establish a movement that was foundational and would spread even after his departure. And he did that by opening temples, empowering devotees, and writing so many books. So a beacon of light, another beacon of light comes in this world. We also know the story. When Prabhupada was in the spiritual world, Prabhupada talks about himself before he came to the material world. He says, I was with Krishna in the spiritual world. These are exact quotes given by some of his intimate associates, spoken by Prabhupada himself. So when I was with Krishna in the spiritual world, Krishna asked me, go to the material world and preach the message of God consciousness to the fallen souls in this age. Prabhupada exclaims, he said, I responded to Krishna by saying, come to the material world, such a horrible place. He said he didn't want to come. Then Krishna told him, no, actually, you go, you write some books, and I'll give you all protection. And Krishna protected him, but still he had to undergo much severity of difficulty on a physical level, and also in trying to bring his movement more and more forward in places that were practically impossible. When the devotees came back with the news that they had opened up preaching in Germany, Prabhupada was in such happiness. He thought we could never preach in the country of Germany, because we know from understanding that it's a very materialistic country. And Prabhupada was elated when we got into Germany and started to open temples, preach, distributed books, and do Harinam. And still today, Germany is still there. So this was one example of how in places that were very difficult to preach, even now devotees are going into places which we are not even allowed into. If we get caught, we will be put in jail or maybe persecuted. Devotees were going, in the time of Prabhupada, they were going behind the Iron Curtain and preaching in places like Russia and Czechoslovakia. At the time it was Czechoslovakia, and then it split. And then in Poland, Hungary, these were all communist, Yugoslavia. These were all places of communism at the time. And devotees went undercover to preach Krishna consciousness. And many times they had to face such harassment by the local authorities, or even be put in jail, fined, and sometimes even harassed physically. But Prabhupada was so determined that he knew it would be very difficult to preach in this age. But his mission was not to become deterred by the difficulty. And he says in one of his statements, he said, I had to walk through fire to spread this movement. He said, I didn't look left, I didn't look right, I looked straight ahead. So Prabhupada was, like a warrior in bringing Krishna consciousness to the world. And we can see the results now. Temples everywhere, more than 600 million books have been recorded as being distributed, and more books are going out every day. People are coming forward. The movement is expanding in many areas around the world. It's all due to Prabhupada's planting that big seed and then watering it during the time he was there and inspiring his disciples in the same way that he was inspired. And that was what really made Krishna consciousness successful. That devotees took up that same mantle that Prabhupada started in the same enthusiasm that he did it in. Of course, his ability, his intelligence was way beyond all of us, but at the same time, he taught us how to do things and how to work in such a difficult situations. And he did it by example. But Prabhupada was in touch with Krishna directly. Therefore, Krishna would always guide him and also protect him in the process of spreading Krishna consciousness around the world. So this is a very difficult age to preach and to practice Krishna consciousness, as it says here. And Maharaj Parikshit, he was a great king, and he treated all of the citizens according to how they would be treated. Kali surrendered to him. Kali completely surrendered to the lotus feet of Maharaj Parikshit and asked for mercy. And Maharaj Parikshit gave him a place to stay, but he didn't give him any facility to preach or to spread his venom. And Kali couldn't do anything, but he was there. But then, as you'll see in this delineation of verses here, you'll see how Kali gets in. And once he gets in, then he's, what we say, he makes his program more and more stronger through his agencies. So this is the example of a great soul. Okay, let's see. All right, see what else we have here in this particular verse. Yeah, so Kali Yuga Pavana, Kali Boyanasana, Sri Satchinandana Namrai. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is still here. Srila Prabhupada's here. And the Krishna conscious movement is strong. It could be stronger, but it's still strong. There's attacks on our movement by Kali and their agents to somehow minimize this movement and even destroy it. But as long as we keep the holy name foremost and the instructions of Srila Prabhupada's foundation and how to organize our society, we'll always be one step ahead of Kali. And although Kali tries to do it through his different agencies, he'll be ineffectual in making any big change or big damage. So we have to stay strong in our own practice. And that means chanting our 16 rounds with attention and with devotion and with enthusiasm and with a desire to please the Lord. We chant in that mood. It takes a little time to develop the mood, but through practice, the mood is easily developed. Just like anything you do in life requires something you don't have the knack for, the ability for, you find out how it's done, you hear from others who are doing it, and then you follow the protocol. And then you become successful in that particular activity. So Krishna consciousness is like that. Simply have to follow Srila Prabhupada's instructions and his teachings on keeping the holy name as the foremost of all spiritual activities. That's most important. And then the verses in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, there's a nice verse in Chaitanya Charitamrita. I think it's what is it? Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhya Lila, chapter 22, verse number 113. I think that is the verse. If not, I can find the reference. But first check that and see if that's the verse. And it kind of puts everything in perspective.
Maharaj, which chapter?
22. I think it's verse 113.
Good.
Yep, this is the verse. Smartavyam satatam Vishnu vishmartavya najatu chit sarvavidi nisheda sur etayameva kinkaram. Krishna is the origin of Vishnu. He should always be remembered and never forgotten at any time. All the rules and prohibitions mentioned in the Shastras should be servants of these two principles. Go ahead, Shrimati, read the purport. It's interesting.
Yes, Maharaj. This verse is a quotation from the Padma Purana. There are many regulative principles in the Shastras and directions given by the spiritual master. These regulative principles should act as servants of the basic principle. That is, one should always remember Krishna and never forget him. This is possible when one chants the Hare Krishna mantra. Therefore, one must strictly chant the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra 24 hours daily. One may have other duties to perform under the direction of the spiritual master, but he must first abide by the spiritual master's order to chant a certain number of rounds. In our Krishna conscious movement, we have recommended that the neophyte chant at least 16 rounds. This chanting of 16 rounds is absolutely necessary if one wants to remember Krishna and not forget him. Of all the regulative principles, the spiritual master's order to chant at least 16 rounds is most essential. One may sell books or enlist life members or render some other service, but these duties are not ordinary duties. These duties serve as an impetus for remembering Krishna. When one goes with a Sankirtana party or sells books, he naturally remembers that he is going to sell Krishna's books. In this way, he is remembering Krishna. When one goes to enlist a life member, he talks about Krishna and thereby remembers him. Smartavya satatam Vishnu vismartavyo najatu chit. The conclusion is that one must act in such a way that he will always remember Krishna, and one must refrain from doing things that make him forget Krishna. These two principles form the basic background of Krishna consciousness.
Yeah, so these are foundational. If one can practice this, the message in this particular purport and verse, then that establishes the foundation for all other activities in Krishna consciousness. To always remember Krishna, never forget Krishna. And the best way is, as Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says, that if you chant every day, you'll come to the point of chanting always. So we have to practice chanting our rounds every day. And whenever there's time, we can increase the chanting more and more. Or we can practice remembering Krishna in different ways throughout the day as we perform other duties. And that's the basic, that's the most essential principle for practicing Krishna consciousness, because the whole process centers around service to Krishna and pleasing Krishna by that service. And the foundation for that is to remember Krishna always. So it becomes very easy in explanation, but maybe not very, but difficult in application. But we have to practice remembering Krishna. And the more we practice, the more natural it becomes. Okay, so we can stop there.
Thank you, Maharaj. Thank you so much. Such a wonderful class. And the importance of chanting finally. Thank you so much. Dear devotees, any questions or comments or realizations, you can please go ahead now. And please turn on your cameras if possible. Maharaj, in the beginning of the class, he was talking about unless we put our thoughts into action, we don't get any reaction. But when we are in the devotees association and we are constantly seeing some devotees regularly meeting them, we form a particular opinion and maybe we become judgmental later, or so we may have some thoughts about them. So how to manage marriage, like how to not look up their things, like whatever faults or whatever different things they are doing, how not to be judgmental, or how to be careful about that.
How to be not what? I missed that last
Not
line.
judgmental, or not creating opinions about them.
Just keep chanting. Krishna will guide you. If you're chanting, you always do the right thing because Krishna works through his holy name to guide you in every way that is needed for your practice of Krishna consciousness. Not only do you remember him, but he guides you in the rest of your activities through himself, through the chanting of the holy name. This is the best and easiest way. Remembering the instructions of the spiritual master are also a foundational principle for practicing Krishna consciousness. But the instructions are given here, and that the most important one is to chant always. So what's stopping us from chanting always? We have to practice, that's all. Just the more you practice, the better you get at it. And Krishna will help you. If you start practicing seriously, and then when you forget to remember him, he'll remind you, oh, you want to remember me, you want to chant. He'll do something. You work through your intelligence or through another person, something. But if you don't make an effort, then you don't get the, you can't access that mercy.
So I just want to clarify once again. So when we are constantly chanting, or when we are constantly remembering Krishna, so Krishna will help us remember things which we should not.
If you're trying to remember Krishna always, when you forget him, he'll remind you that you should be remembering him.
Okay.
It works like that. I'm serious.
Yes, Maharaj.
Oh, you want to remember me, but you're not. So that's what happens.
Okay, thank you. Dear devotees, any questions, comments? Bhikkhu Prabhuji, please go ahead.
Firstly, please accept our Dandvat Pranams, Maharaj. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. I just wish to comment on a recent experience about chanting. If kindly permit me to say that, Maharaj. Recently, we attended a cruise on which there was Krishna Katha by Lal Govindas. And while on the cruise, I met a very senior devotee from Chopati, Mumbai Chopati, and his name is Radha Krishna Das. I think you may have met him, Radha Krishna Das.
Yeah.
And fortunately, and I think through arrangement of Krishna, I approached him. We had very good dialogue, mainly on chanting. You see, I'm making efforts, but sometimes chanting becomes, let's say, struggle, or sometimes it is mechanical. But the tips, apart from the technique and practice, which I got were very useful. And as you said, Maharaj, quality of chanting is important, devotion. So I'm putting it all into practice, what I was advised by Radha Krishna Das. And it's not a question of speed, but more of quality that I'm now after and trying. So I realize the very important factor of chanting in our lives. And going back to our earlier class that you gave, Kali is everywhere, where he stays where there is gold. And I think gold is in every home and in every temple. So Kali can't be escaped. But I'm focusing more on the quality of chanting with your blessings, and we're trying to achieve that. So that's something I wanted to share, and thank you.
Oh, good. Very nice. That's a nice message for everyone. Mhm. Mhm.
Thank you, Prabhuji, for sharing. Thank you.
If you permit, I can mention a couple of tips that were given, and I made a note of it. I think first thing he said, all the words should be clearly pronounced. Then second thing is no overlap.
No,
And there should be a gap between each word. And one should not try to swallow or partially or fully any words. So it takes me about 12 minutes. It takes the Radha Krishna Das more about 13, 14 minutes, but he showed me the pattern and I'm trying to imitate that. So I thought I mentioned that, Maharaj.
that's a key principle. The tendency of the devotees is to try to finish their rounds because they got so many other things to do, so we try to squeeze it into a certain time period. But that's not the way to approach the holy name. Chant carefully, sound the names clearly, and listen. And don't be in a hurry. Don't go too slow where the mind wanders. Keep the mind focused on that sound. And that means you have to really be attentive. But clear chanting will attract the mind more than chanting that is done without clarity. In other words, when we push the names together rather than clearly, distinctly pronounce each one. Very important, essential, foundational point for developing a taste for chanting. Yeah. Clear pronunciation. And Prabhupada writes about that. Let's see, where is that? Maybe Shrimati can find that. It's in, I think it's the 17th chapter of Adi Leela, verse number 32. I think. Let's see. 1732.
17 chapter 32.
It's one of the rare purports where Prabhupada talks about how to chant. Let's see. Yeah, this is it. Okay. Go ahead and read.
Yes, Maharaj. Raising my hands, translation, raising my hands, I declare, everyone please hear me. String this verse on the thread of the holy name and wear it on your neck for continuous remembrance.
That verse is mentioned here. Okay.
Yeah. Purport. When chanting the Hare Krishna Mahamantra in the beginning, one may commit many offenses, which are called Nama Bhasa and Nama Pradha. In this stage, there is no possibility of achieving perfect love of Krishna by chanting the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. Therefore, one must chant the Hare Krishna Mahamantra according to the principles of the above verse, Trinadapi Sunichena Taroriva Sahishnuna. One should note in this connection that chanting involves the activities of the upper and lower lips as well as the tongue. All three must be engaged in chanting the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. The words Hare Krishna should be very distinctly pronounced and heard. Sometimes one mechanically produces a hissing sound instead of chanting with the proper pronunciation with the help of the lips and tongue. Chanting is very simple, but one must practice it seriously. Therefore, the author of Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, Krishnadasa Kaviraj Goswami, advises everyone to keep this verse always strung about his neck.
Yeah. That's the verse from the Chaitanya Shikshastakam. Trinadapi Sunichenata Goriva Sahishnana. And then Prabhupada further elaborates by giving us some practical things that we should perform in the chanting and what we should avoid either. Avoid the hissing sound. Hare Krishna, Krishna, it sounds like, the radiator in your room is letting off steam or something, but it's not. It's your chanting. So be careful in it. Make it clear. Yeah.
Thank you, Maharaj. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Okay. Maharaj, we have a question on chat by Sri Advaita Prabhu. He is saying, Hare Krishna Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances. Thank you so much for your wonderful class. You mentioned about how when the sinful actions are performed, they carry a reaction. What do these reactions look like? Are they physical or mental?
Both. If they're severe enough, they can be physical, but they usually affect one's consciousness. So if there's corporal offenses and there's offenses that are not so severe. So there's offenses committed by the body, offenses committed by the mind, and offenses committed by words. So when you commit offenses by, the mind, it's less effective. More the words are more, and then the body is the worse. Body means you take some physical action against someone. And that story is brought out in the Shastras where Brigamuni is asked to find out which of the three deities, Brahma, Vishnu, or Shiva, is the most magnanimous and compassionate. He goes to Brahma. Brahma is his father, and he comes in the presence of Brahma, and he doesn't offer his respects, which is an offense because that was his father, and Brahma is also the head of the Sampradaya. So he failed to offer respects. And that was an offense in the mind. Brahma became angry, and then he left. He went to Kailash to see Lord Shiva, and Shiva was there along with Parvati. When Shiva saw him, Brigu Muni is his brother, so he came and he said, "Oh, my brother, wonderful to see you." He wanted to embrace him, but Brigu stepped back and said, "No, don't touch me. You're full of, ashes from crematoriums," and it's like that. So Shiva became really angry about that and was about to finish him off, but Parvati stopped it. So that was an offense with words. And then the final one was he went to Lord Vishnu, and the Dweep ocean, and Vishnu's there with Lakshmi. He comes up to Vishnu. Vishnu sees Brigu. He said, "Oh, my dear brother Vignu, you are so wonderful. Thank you for coming to see me. How can I serve you?" And Brigu didn't do anything. He just walked up to Lord Vishnu and kicked him in the chest. And so he committed a corporal offense by making a physical act against the Lord. But the Lord didn't take offense. He said, "Oh, my dear Brigu, I am a Kshatriya. My chest is very hard. Let me massage your feet." And so Lord Vishnu, you see it on Lord Jagannath, if you see the Jagannath deities, he has a foot mark right by his arm there. That's the mark of Brigu. He wears it as an ornament. And so the Lord didn't even take offense. He committed a corporal offense. So there's 3 ways to commit an offense. And so one should be wary not to do all 3. Of course, offenses in the mind are not counted so much, but still, they can lead to verbal and corporal activities. So one should be connected to Krishna, not to anything else. That's the idea of devotional life. Practicing the whole process of remembering Krishna. When we're serving, we should be thinking, I'm doing this service for my spiritual master, for the devotees. It's an offering to the Lord through the various agencies. So that's Krishna consciousness. When we're not engaged in any activity, we can be chanting the holy name anytime. When we're having a conversation, we keep the conversation connected to something devotional, either the activities or Krishna himself.
Yes, Maharaj, thank you. Prabhuji, hope that answers your question. Okay, Maharaj. Dear devotees, any questions or comments? You can unmute and you can ask, or you can raise your hand.
There's no more questions. Oh, Sonal.
Or
Okay.
another.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, please accept my obeisances to all the devotees as well. I just had a question, or I just want to ask. So you mentioned earlier in the class that then chanting the holy name is the quickest and easiest method, especially in this age because of mercy. But it seems that it's taking ages to make even slight change in the actual life what we are living. So how to keep the enthusiasm? Because sometimes it just takes months, and then there's this little change which comes through, and then again it takes a few more months. So how to keep the enthusiasm during those changes?
Too slow. should be a little bit quicker than that. Clear pronunciation of the holy name with the strong emphasis on remembering Krishna as you chant the holy name, remembering the holy name, hearing the sound vibration is remembering. You should be able to make rapid advancement. So maybe there's something else in your life that is causing you to slow down in your spiritual life. You have to see, is there some activity outside of devotional service that is making your execution of devotional service not as easy as it could be? And there's many things, such as, fault finding, speaking nonsense, just acting for the sake of acting without understanding why I'm acting, not listening, not following the rules and regulations, acting whimsically and mechanically, associating with non-devotees. All of these things can water down our progress in spiritual life. We have to look and see what can we eliminate that is keeping us from getting that higher taste.
I think as a mother, you obviously first blame your family, but
I think you're just being humble. I don't, the devotees are always, they never think they're so advanced, but even though they may be very advanced, they don't think so.
I think it's definitely that since I've started following and chanting, it definitely is that all the faults are coming in front of me, but still sometimes I'm repulsed to act on it. So I'm still not able to control my emotions or anger at times, But at least it's coming in front of me that I shouldn't be doing or behaving this way or thinking this way.
Just get angry at the demons, that's all. If any relatives give you any trouble, get angry at them. Then you're using your anger properly.
But then again, I fall short in my duties, right? As a wife or as a mother or a sister or daughter.
Yeah, that's Bhakti Siddhanta says anger can be used in 3 ways. 1, towards your own laziness in practicing Krishna consciousness. 2, towards relatives who try to interfere with your devotional life. And 3, the demons. So it gives you those 3 categories you can direct anger towards.
Okay, I need to think about everything then.
Yeah, if we have a tendency to be a little bit passionate in our activities, we have to just direct it in a way that is what we say uplifting and beneficial, and not takes us in the wrong direction. Everything can be used in Krishna consciousness, provided you know how to do it. That's all.
I'll try to make more changes in my day-to-day life.
I still think you're being humble.
No.
But that's good.
Thank you.
If you weren't being humble, you wouldn't agree with me. But I mean, you would agree with me. But since you don't agree with me, that means you're humble.
No. I know we have a few mothers on the chat. They know what I mean. I'm not humble at all. Thank you so much, Maharaj.
Yeah, Krishna consciousness is a lot of, it's trial and error. We learn, we make some mistakes, we pick up, we go ahead, we get some success, and just keep going. That's all. Don't give up.
Fortunately, there is no question of giving up.
Yeah, there's no alternative.
No.
Giving up means to suffer. That's all.
Thank you so much, Maharaj.
Thank you, Mataji. Sridevi Mataji, please go ahead.
Thank you, Srimati. Dear Guru Maharaj, please accept my most humble obeisances. All glories to Prabhupada. Very timely class, Guru Maharaj, again on chanting and the instructions to chant clearly, to pay attention, etc. I was wondering if you could give us some tips about controlling the mind when chanting. Some days mind just cooperates, picks up the holy name, and we can really put all our focus into chanting. And some days the wandering mind is giving so much trouble when chanting. So how to keep the mind under control when chanting?
Just here, Prabhupada said, what is this mind? He said, what is this mind? Just here. Don't pay attention to your rascal mind. That's all. You listen to it, and it'll take you wherever it wants to take you. Don't listen to it, just keep hearing. Make the hearing process louder than the thoughts of the mind. That's all. if the mind's dictations are louder than the hearing process, it's going to win. If you hear loud, if your hearing is stronger than the mind's dictation, then you push the mind to the background. And after a while, it'll give up. But you have to make sure that clearly hearing that sound vibration. Bhikkhu just gave us, the whole explanation based on his personal experience. There, we were covering it in these verses we brought up also. Don't listen to your mind.
Yes, Guru
Prabhupada
Maharaj. Thank
says,
you.
never trust your mind, always mistrust. Learn how to neglect the thoughts of your mind when they appear, and just push them out and don't pay attention to them. Pay attention to the sound of the name. Sometimes you have to make a little extra effort. It's not that you can just lackadaisically chant and expect everything to come. You have to make some efforts. That's one of the forms of inattention. It's called audakshina. That means lackadaisically chanting without any real effort. It's one of the means of inattention. There are three means of inattention. Other thoughts, lackadaisical, or what we say, they call it inertia, chanting, and the tendency to get sleepy. These are the three forms of inattention. Sometimes you have to be a little.
Thank you, Guru Maharaj.
The mind is a naughty child. Sometimes you have to be a little, corrective. Don't try to correct the mind, just try to ignore it. That's all. You can't correct it. You try to correct it, it'll go somewhere else and have another plan. Just ignore it.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Amritalam Mataji.
Hare Krishna, please accept my humble obeisances, Guru Maharaj. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. First of all, thank you to Bhikkhu Prabhu. Very nice share. He shared very nicely the experience he had that brought me to a conclusion that yes, I should slow down my chanting. So thank you, Prabhu. And thank you, Guru Maharaj, for explaining for the words that you gave. So I had one clarification. It's not a question basically, but sometimes it happens that I wake up sometimes at 4 o'clock, sometimes at 5 o'clock, sometimes at 2 o'clock. So that is not the discipline what I have. So is that instability?
Yeah, your mind's restless, that's all. You got an overactive mind. What you do before you take rest at night will also be instrumental on how you rest. Like there's certain things I won't do towards the end of I won't go on the computer in the last 3 or 4 hours before I take a rest, because that makes the mind more restless. So don't think the last thing you can do is do your emails or surf the net and then expect to go to sleep and the mind's going to be peaceful. Forget that. I do all my computer work in the morning and some emergency stuff in the afternoon, but hardly anything. That's one thing that'll make the mind restless is, the computer. Cell phones are also like that also. How much you eat or what you eat at night before you take rest will also determine when you rest and when you wake up. What thoughts you have while you're taking rest will also influence your sleep patterns. Yeah. So Prabhupada, when we were beginning Krishna consciousness, Prabhupada introduced Krishna book reading and hot milk before taking rest. That was there in all the temples. A glass of hot milk and reading of Krishna book. Hearing Krishna's pastimes, and then as soon as the narration's over, the lights go out. Nothing else. So you have to be disciplined even in your own home, even though you're not in a forced disciplinary an atmosphere. You have to make yourself disciplined. So before you take rest, they say you shouldn't even eat grains 2 or 3 hours before you take rest either. That's not very good. And if you take rest at night, Prabhupada said eat very light in the evening. Like what I do is a bowl of soup, or I just take a few raisins or maybe a date or something like that. Or if I'm really haven't had much lunch, then I'll eat some pasta around 6 o'clock, but I won't go to bed till about 9:30 or 10. So eat light in the evening. That'll affect your sleep patterns. If you sleep during the day, then you also find yourself having a hard time sleeping at night also, because the mind is not so tired when you go to sleep. And it wakes up by itself. If you have thoughts that are disturbing you and you take rest, that will also affect your sleep patterns. That's why just before going to rest is a very critical time in our Krishna conscious practice. I won't get on, I won't talk to certain people before I go take rest, because I know those conversations will not be something that I want to carry with me when I take rest. When I lay down, I begin chanting. As soon as I lay down, I start chanting in my mind. And then as I chant, I don't find myself, I just drift off to sleep simply by chanting. Not with beads, just chanting either in the mind or very softly, either one. So that's a critical time. When you get up in the morning and when you take rest at night, those 2 times are very critical in your practice of Krishna consciousness. Those 2 times are. So be sure you perform those activities that don't disturb your sleep, and those activities that when you wake up, you can move yourself quickly into the mood of devotional activities. Don't get up and clean the house or wash the laundry, or check you can check your email. I check my emails sometimes when I wake up, and then I just turn the phone off and I leave it off until breakfast time. I even forget about what I check. Sometimes I don't even check because I don't even want to be bothered by what's there until I'm ready to deal with it. All these techniques you learn through cause and effect, trial and error, and through the practice of other devotees who know what to do. That's why Bhaktisiddhanta says, you should beat your mind with shoes when you wake up in the morning, and you beat your mind with a broomstick before you take rest at night. He says that. You can find the verse. It's not the verse, it's the purport. You want to find that one? It's
Yes, Maharaj.
5th canto, Srimad Bhagavatam, 11th chapter, verse number 17, which is the last verse in the chapter. 5:11:17.
Yes, Mataji.
You can read the verse and purport. It's very instructive.
Mara, shall I read the translation?
Yeah, okay. Yeah, read it. Translation.
This uncontrolled mind is the greatest enemy of the living entity. If one neglects it or gives it a chance, it will grow more and more powerful and will become victorious. Although it is not factual, it is very strong. It covers the constitutional position of the soul. O King, please try to conquer this mind by the weapon of service to the lotus feet of the spiritual master and of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Do this with great care. There is one easy weapon with which the mind can be conquered: neglect. The mind is always telling us to do this or that. Therefore, we should be very expert in disobeying the mind's orders. Gradually, the mind should be trained to obey the orders of the soul. It is not that one should obey the orders of the mind. Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakura used to say that to control the mind, one should beat it with shoes many times just after awakening and again before going to sleep. In this way, one can control the mind. This is the instruction of all the Shastras. If one does not do so, one is doomed to follow the dictations of the mind. Another bona fide process is to abide strictly by the orders of the spiritual master and engage in the Lord's service.
Okay,
Then the mind...
Yeah, that's the second part of it. But the
Yeah.
main part we covered in there.
Yes.
So he says, beat your mind with shoes. And then again, when you go to sleep, beat it again. Sometimes he says broomstick, but sometimes he says shoes again. So Prabhupada says, I carry a pair of shoes with me, and any disciple that needs it, I beat him with the shoes, you know. So you can tell your husband or your friend or your close, you know, here's a pair of shoes. When I wake up, just beat my head with the shoes, and then I'll be able to nicely begin my spiritual practice.
Guru Maharaj is going to love you for this instruction then.
This is not some eulogy or some hyperbole. It's a fact. These are the two times when the minds are the most wild. When you wake up and just before you go to sleep. You have to make sure that that mind doesn't, you know, bring you where you don't want to go. And if the mind is restless, you'll wake up at different times when you're sleeping. And a lot of it has to do with our eating habits, because it says, well, by controlling your eating, you can controlling your sleeping. That's the statement that's made on. By carefully controlling your eating habits, then you can start to control your sleeping habits. And then it becomes easier and more natural.
Thank you, Guru Maharaj. I think that gives me a lot of practice to do. Thank you. Yes.
Good.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Mataji. Sridevi Mataji, you have a question?
Thank you. Dear Guru Maharaj, I remember in one lecture about the holy name, you had mentioned that Srila Prabhupada says 90%, some places 95%, some places 99% of our advancement comes from the quality of our chanting. You had mentioned that. May I humbly ask, where can I get that reference and where can I read more about that?
It's a Prabhupada. He just says it every once in a while. He'll say 90%, 95%, all of your advancement is based on the chanting of the holy name. So just look up in the database these different words, and you can trace it down to Prabhupada's lectures. Mostly in his lectures. He also mentions it in his books, but mostly in the lectures.
Thank you, Guru Maharaj. Hare Krishna.
There's innumerable statements about chanting, because chanting is the foundation for our practice of Krishna consciousness. Therefore, you'll find the most information centered around chanting throughout the books, throughout the lectures, everywhere. It's the most important.
Thank you, Maharaj. Thank you so much. Maharaj, I have one question regarding chanting and service. So how many exactly rounds we should chant minimum to do a service, like suppose for a neophyte or new people coming into Krishna consciousness, when we want to give some service to them? I heard in one lecture that there is no, without chanting, there is no service, like we should not do any service without any chanting. So how to encourage new people to chant and do some service, Maharaj?
Well, yeah, sometimes you have to start people off by service, and then when they start becoming involved in service, you can introduce the chanting. And some people you can introduce the chanting right at the beginning. The tendency of people, especially those who are born in the Indian culture, is they like to do service. They have a knack for service. But they don't really see the importance of chanting as much as the importance for doing service. They weigh that in comparison. But once they get a taste for service, then it becomes easier for them to adopt the chanting in a regular way. That's my experience.
So once they progress a little bit, can we give us a number, like at least chant 4 rounds or 2 rounds before coming for the service?
Yeah, 4 rounds is nice. 4 rounds is called the Sankalpa. Just like I asked one very senior devotee who was well versed in the Shastras. He said he was taught, the question was related to one devotee who wanted to install deities in his house. And he chants 16 rounds every day, but his wife was only chanting 3 rounds, and she would take care of the deities throughout the day. So I presented that, and he said she should chant 4. 4 is the Sankalpa, and not below that. So we try to start people off with, I mean, some people, maybe even 4 rounds is too much. But if they, if they really want to start off nicely, 4 rounds is good. 2 in the morning, 2 in the evening. Sometimes I meet people that are doing 1 in the morning and 1 in the evening. You have to see. Just use your discrimination to see how much you can encourage people to chant. That's all.
Yes, Maharaj. Yeah. Thanks so much.
I just tell people chanting is nice. You become peaceful.
Yes.
Everybody wants peace. And when you tell them chanting brings peace, then they get a little more interested. If you tell them chanting brings you love of God, they'll think, well, they'll get confused.
They'll think that we are crazy.
Yeah.
What?
It does, but that's not where you start people off at.
Yeah. Thank you, Maharaj. Thank you.
Yeah.
Revati Mataji, please go ahead.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Mataji. Hi, Krishna. Guru Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada, all glories to all assembled devotees. So, Guru Maharaj, my question is about thoughts. I also see the kind of association we are in. We develop those kind of thoughts. And that also impacts your chanting, because sometimes your chanting is very good because of the association. Sometimes, like when you're in a very higher association, you get very motivated to chant in a very attentively. And sometimes, like if association is not, it's giving you some negative thoughts, your chanting goes down. So, or like to understand, like how much association is very valuable. Like how should we?
If you have to associate outside of Krishna consciousness, you do it to maintain family responsibilities. And that's there for men with work who are work, or women who are work, or women who are taking care of the home. They have to, buy the groceries. They have to, fix the car. All of these things. But these things are secondary, necessary, but secondary. So what will help us in not being affected by all of this extra outside association, which is required, is the strength of our sadhana. If you have good sadhana, then you're less affected. And if you have really good sadhana, you're not affected at all. So the quality of our sadhana means the hearing and chanting, reading Prabhupada's books, and going to the temple, worshiping the deities, taking only Krishna prasadam. If we're strict in our practice of Krishna consciousness, we get the spiritual strength to be unaffected by what happens outside of that.
Mm.
Yeah, it's just like when you go out in the rain. If you're out in the rain and you don't have any covering, you're going to get wet. If you have an umbrella, you still may get a little wet, but if you have a raincoat and rain shoes and everything, you stay dry, although it's raining. Now, how much you protect yourself by the influence of outside association really depends on the strength of your own practice. And if you see yourself being affected, then pull back from that so you don't go down in Krishna consciousness.
Yes, Guru Maharaj, I also realized that when my chanting is very good, on that day, I can see like, my consciousness is also like very firm and I don't really get disturbed.
Yeah, there's the answer.
Yes, thank you. So, thank you very much, Guru Maharaj. I just have a question.
Prabhupada would say, Maya is as strong as you are weak.
Mhm. Yeah. So if your desires are very strong, then Maya will less attack us, even though you're not able to, fulfill that desires, but your desire is very strong. But
It's just a stage. You have to actualize those desires. You have to make them happen.
Mhm.
Although you desire it, if you don't have the what we say qualifications, adhikari, then even though the desire is there, you're still going to be affected.
Mhm. Okay, so
You have to make that desire a reality.
so unless we practice the desire, it will not help
Then
us.
we say to people, do what you can do without getting contaminated on the outside. That's all. If you see yourself being affected by that, by the outside, just pull back from that.
Mm. That's good.
Try to be a hero and then go down.
Mm.
You're not spiritually strong enough, then you will go down.
That's good. Yes. Thank you very much, Guru Maharaj. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Maharaj. Thank you, Mataji. Such a nice question. Dear devotees, any last minute questions or comments? Thank you, Maharaj. I don't see any questions. With your permission, we can end the call here today.
Okay, we can stop here and begin tomorrow's, at least in our section of the world, is Ram Nomi.
Yes.
We'll try to do something in relationship to Ram Nomi. It's going to be a little, you have to see what my schedule is. We have an initiation ceremony starting at 11 o'clock my time, which means I'll have 2 hours before my class. So I don't know how long that initiation ceremony is and the aftermath that's carried. So I might be either late or if I have to cancel it for some reason, I'll let you know ahead of time.
Yes, Maharaj. Sure. Thank you so much.
Is Ram Navami here also in India, Gurudev?
Right.
Yeah.
It's Europe and India. All except for the United States. Everything else is.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you everyone for participating. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Holiness Candramauli Swami Maharaj ki jai.
Yeah.
Thank you, and Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Guru Maharaj. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj.